My name's Renata Tirda. I use she, her pronouns, and I work for the Portland Bureau of Transportation, or PBOT, in the Active Transportation and Safety Division, where I lead a section called the Program Section, where I get to work with a team of people who implement programs that promote and encourage people into taking more walking, biking, rolling trips. Today, I'm joined by 4 of my PBOT colleagues who are experts in implementing programs that promote climate-friendly modes and healthy, vibrant public spaces. They will be introducing themselves at the start of their portion of the presentation. So this 45-minute session has a goal of showing you the ways in which we've used SMS marketing or texting as an engagement tool so that you can consider if this method of engaging can be useful in your work and really equip you with knowledge that we've gained from our experience. So before we launch into the use cases, I want to share how we at PBOT got started into using texting as an engagement tool. So did you know that according to a study, texting has 6 times the engagement rate of email? In fact, texting has close to 100% open rate. 90% of consumers open their text in 30 minutes or less, and they spend more time on their messaging app than any other apps in their phones. Well, I didn't know any of those stats when I got started using texting. How we got into texting is that in 2019, we were actually working with a consulting firm called Ideas 42. They were helping us explore and give guidance on how to design and implement behavioral interventions in a transportation context. They were working with us to design an intervention around our Rose Lanes project in order to get more people to ride the bus. And all of that work was halted by the COVID-19 pandemic. As part of the plan that they produced, there was a whole section on how to do behavioral interventions using texting. So here's one snapshot from that plan, which is a rule of thumbs checklist in planning your text message. And just a quick summary of what you could see on the slide here. The main points in the rule of thumbs checklist is to make sure that your text messages grab attention, that you make it personal, that you eliminate hassles, that you inspire people into taking action, and to think about the presentation of it. So we had all of this information ready to go about texting. And when COVID hit, we found that we've lost our usual methods of engaging the public around active transportation. We usually would do engagement through tabling at community events, meeting with partners directly, or hosting our own events. All of those methods were not available to us, but we still wanted to make sure that we're able to connect with community members in our various programs. And so, sorry. Oh, I skipped a whole, and so we used the remainder of Ideas 42's contract to get them to help us integrate texting into a neighborhood greenway campaign that we were scheduled to launch called Go by Greenways. And through the experience of implementing texting in that campaign, we learned that there are so many ways that texting can be used. So today we'll be sharing the 5 ways that we used it to engage community. And those 5 use cases are that how we use texting to share event news, to collect feedback from community members, to offer personal assistance, to help prepare people for a big change, and to pair texting and gamification in order to encourage walking and biking. And with each of these use cases, you'll notice that there will be this graphic in the top right corner. So this is our star rating system for how complicated it is to set up a campaign like this. That way you can get a sense of the amount of planning and resources you would need to do to use it in a similar way. And just a quick overview of the SMS or texting provider that we use. We use this company called SlickText. We selected them mostly because when I first started looking for a tool, I found that another city bureau was already using SlickText and that we've gone through an entire vetting process with our technology services group. So that just meant like less hoops for me to jump through. Ideas 42 did recommend, though, a list of providers, which I have included here. So those other popular vendors are Easy Texting, Trumpia, Twilio, Signal Vine, and Engage Spark. And I also listed on the slide here some of the key features that you want to consider when choosing a vendor. So those features are you want to be able to do two-way texting, contact management, reporting or analytics, having people be able to opt into texting via a text word, and then scheduling. And overall, the SlickText user interface is very easy to use. Contacts are organized by text words, which are the words that a subscriber would type into their phone in order to opt into receiving text. So the functionality of SlickText is very similar to an email marketing service such as MailChimp or other similar groups, in that, you know, all of your contacts are organized by groups and campaigns are like the messages that you're sending out. And then just a quick note on how pricing works with SlickText. They have a wide range of monthly pricing plans. So you could see a snapshot here that it starts at $29 a month. The cost is really based on the number of text words that you want to use, as well as the number of texts that you want to send each month. So the plans that we use range from $80 to $200 per month. So with all of that introductory information, now I would like to turn it over to Rachel Lobo, who will go over our first case study, which is how to use texting for sharing event news.
Awesome. Thanks, Renata. So my name's Rachel Lobo. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the program manager for Sunday Parkways and Active Transportation and Safety Division at PBOT. And I also work on some of the other campaigns to encourage people to use and get familiar with new walking and biking infrastructure. So the first use case that I'll be sharing with you is how to share event news. This scenario is around our hybrid Sunday Parkways program that we did in 2021. I would say that difficulty-wise, I gave this 1 star in terms of setting it up. It's pretty simple to manage. As Renata said, the platform's really user-friendly. The most time-consuming piece is just planning out your communication strategy and writing the content that you want to share. So for this campaign, we shared information about 2 programs that we had in place of our regular in-person events. We had virtual programming that involved classes online on Facebook Live, from cooking to art classes to fitness classes that were available free almost every day of the week. And then we also had a scavenger hunt that folks could do on their own to walk and bike around the city. Because these were 2 new programs for us, we wanted to have a way to reach both our existing audiences and new audiences. And so we created a text word for the season, and the text word was resilience. So on the screen, I have a picture, a graphic that is a blue background with a cute cartoon cat. It shows the text word resilience. It has instructions for how to join that text word, a QR code, and our logos. So this is an example of one of the sidewalk decals that we use. That was one of the ways that people could opt into this information campaign. The other way that we shared this text word was through mailers, social media posts and ads, and e-newsletters. Let's see here. So you can go to the next slide, Renata. Thank you. So in terms of effectiveness, this campaign was pretty successful. We had 670 participants who opted in throughout the course of the summer. The campaign ran from May to September. We found that the strengths of it were that it was really easy for people to opt in, assuming that they had a cell phone and access to a data plan. But it was a great way for us to engage with new and existing audiences. It was also really easy to send time-sensitive messages because the open rate that Renata showed is so high and that people look at them so quickly. It was a great way to let people know that if we had a special event coming up that afternoon, to send them a same-day text reminder rather than an email. Some of the challenges are that including links or other calls to action can be difficult because of the limited characters. So you don't get as many links or information as you would in, say, an email or social media post. And choosing which messages to share can be a little challenging. We had programming every day of the week, but we didn't want to send text messages about every class to avoid people from unsubscribing. So trying to get strategic, and I believe that SlickText recommends you kind of set an expectation with people who subscribe to your text word about how often you'll be texting them. So on the screen here, I have those strengths and weaknesses that I just described. And then I also have a graphic which shows a sample of one of the social media ads that we posted. This was a Instagram ad. It has a description of the campaign, a graphic in the middle that has a text word, some little cartoon sloths. And then at the bottom in the ad portion, it has the text resilience and the phone number to text it to. You can, and I will go ahead and pass it off to Gina now.
Thanks, Rachel. Hi, everybody. My name is Gina Gastaldi, and I am a transportation planner and the interim pedestrian coordinator for the Portland Bureau of Transportation. I'm on the Complete Streets team on our planning division, and I was very involved in our Safe Streets initiative, which is one part of that was the Healthy Businesses program. If you're in Portland or you've been to Portland, I'm sure you've eaten at one of the outdoor dining healthy businesses that PBOT permitted as a result of the pandemic. On this slide, there's two examples of some outdoor dining restaurants. So one is a parking lane outdoor dining structure with a wooden picket fence around it and some umbrellas. Another example is a full street closure with picnic tables and bikes out in the street. So when PBOT launched the Healthy Businesses program in 2020, we really needed to find a way to do some program evaluation and get feedback from the public about how people were feeling about the outdoor dining program. And we really used this to inform the future of the program. It was a brand new program. We'd never done anything like this before. We had about 1,000 permitted outdoor dining structures. So we really needed to understand, moving through the pandemic and after the pandemic, what folks wanted to see with that program. So we launched a text message based public outreach survey. We advertised it using sidewalk decals placed near outdoor dining locations that would prompt people to take the survey. And in terms of setting it up, I think it's 1.5 or maybe 2 stars. It's really easy to set up, but there are some weaknesses in the program and in the platform, and I'll share a little bit more about that. Next slide, Renata. So we received over 3,000 survey responses in the summer of 2021. Participating businesses also shared the survey on social media. Here are 2 screenshots from Instagram of businesses promoting the survey. And so in 2021, we used these orange stickers, large vinyl stickers placed on the sidewalk that say, "Noticing businesses in the street, take our quick survey, text Plaza to the phone number," and then also the PBOT logo. So we had Mayfly in North Portland was posting it on their social media, asking their followers to take the survey and let PBOT know how much you like the program. And then Afro Village PDX was showing how much they love the plazas all over. Take 60 seconds to tell PBOT that you love it too. So just a couple of examples of, we had these decals, these sidewalk stickers all over the city. And then we also had a lot of love on social media. And it resulted in 3,000 survey responses. So this is to show you kind of the structure of how you would structure the questions. They really need to be very simple questions, yes, no, maybe, that type of setup of a question. So these are some examples of the questions we asked. Did you visit a Portland establishment doing business in the summer in the sidewalk or street? Yes, no, or unsure. So 97% of the survey respondents said yes, they had visited a business doing a restaurant doing business outside. 2% said no, and 1% said unsure. The output from the SlickText survey is an Excel spreadsheet kind of style. So these graphics are something that we pulled into InDesign after the fact and created. So that is one, if you want to make nice graphics, you have to bring that out, I think. But we also asked, did you feel safe visiting a business outdoors, given concerns about COVID-19? Again, structured as yes, no, unsure, with 96% of survey respondents saying yes, 3% saying no, and 1% unsure. Next slide, Renata. And then, so we asked 4 questions in the survey. I think it's important that you keep these slick text surveys really short so that people don't drop off. It also keeps it just nice, quick. We wanted it to be something that folks could take in about 30 seconds while they were waiting for a table or waiting to cross the street. So another example of the question was, were you able to move safely on the sidewalk near outdoor businesses without obstructions or tripping hazards? 89% of folks said yes, 8% said no, and 3% said sometimes. And then we asked, looking beyond 2021, should street space remain open for business use? And 93% of the survey respondents said yes, 5% said no, and 2% said unsure. So this gives you an idea of the types of questions that you can ask using Slick Text. If you took the sample survey at the beginning of our presentation, you'll see that they really need to be simple questions. Next slide. So what do you do if you want to ask more complicated questions, or in the sake of a city bureau where we're required to ask demographic questions? So for more complicated questions like demographics or mode choice breakdown, or if you want to have open-ended questions where people can leave comments, you really need to use an additional platform. So the way that we structured this with Slick Text is there was those 4 yes, no, unsure questions that people could ask. When people would hit, the answer to the last question, it would say, thank you so much for taking our survey. If you'd like to leave additional comments, please click this link. And it was a URL to SurveyMonkey. So SurveyMonkey was how we were able to ask our required demographic questions, and questions like you see this image on the screen of mode choice. So on the screen, I have an image of a bar graph that says healthy businesses mode choice breakdown. We were really curious how folks were traveling to our healthy businesses. And we were really pleasantly surprised to learn that 63% of people walked, 22% of people drove, 11% biked, and a few percent other transit, mobility device, shared e-scooter, or taxi. So for questions like this, you're going to want to think about using an additional platform like SurveyMonkey. And just an example of how many people opted into that, of the 3,000 Slick Text survey respondents, over 400 opted to take that longer SurveyMonkey survey. So still a pretty good selection of people. So the strengths of using Slick Text or another SMS-based program, it's really quick, really easy to use, and a really kind of fun and easy way for people to provide feedback. Weaknesses, it does require a cell phone. Longer open-ended questions, like I described, really need to be directed to another platform. And we found difficulty in providing the surveys in in additional languages while still keeping with the one code, like survey, the public plaza survey. So I think that is the end of my slide, and I actually don't know who's next.
Hi, everybody. I'm next. My name is Guy Fonseca. I am a community service aide at PBOT in the Active Transportation and Safety Division. My current projects are mainly focusing on Bike Town for All outreach right now, as well as Prescriber Bike PDX outreach. And I'll be talking about how we use Slick Text to provide customer service and personal assistance to folks in our Transportation Wallet for Residents of Affordable Housing program. And under that, within that program, we also offered Bike Town for All memberships. So we also did provide customer service to folks needing help with that as well. So what we did, we provided customer service. Anybody who had any question about their transportation wallet option or needed help with Bike Town for All, for example, how to sign up. Folks did not have to sign up for Bike Town for All. It was an option provided to them. So they would text in a text word Bike Town, and we would send them a script to sign them up. through Slick Text. So that's one of the options they had. The opt-in method for these programs was through a SurveyMonkey form. So Transportation Wallet, residents would fill out this form, and in the SurveyMonkey, there would be a button that would say, yes, I would love to sign up for Slick Text. And then after they submitted the survey, they would receive a text and asking them to text back a text word so they could officially be enrolled in Slick Text. Then their information would be transferred over, and then within the service, they would be segmented into their individual housing groups, which would help us communicate with each housing group in a mass text, or easier to find an individual based on where they lived. It was pretty effective. 120 residents opted into the service, and we actually had direct communication with 80 residents. Down at the bottom of the slide here, you can actually see a screenshot of Slick Text, letting somebody know that they're officially signed up for Slick Text, a Transportation Wallet participant. And over to the right, we have the Transportation Wallet logo, and underneath the Biketown logo. Next slide, you. And here I'll be talking about some strengths and weaknesses about using Slick Text for providing customer service. So the strengths are, it's a very direct and efficient way of communicating with those who prefer texting. It's very easy to text in, as we already talked about. A lot of folks either miss phone calls or think an email might be just a little bit too formal, especially for smaller questions, right? It's less intimidating to text in and speak with somebody, especially a government entity. That can be pretty intimidating over the phone. Or if they just have a quick question like, you know, hey, I'm not sure where to lock up my bike or something like that, they could just text in rather than write an email or try and call us. One of the weaknesses isn't access to a cell phone. Down on the right-hand side at the bottom of the screen here, you can see somebody with a very old school cell phone. It's a joke. Obviously, we don't have those anymore, although they were pretty cool. So yes, you do need access to a cell phone and a texting plan to use Slick Text, right? Longer inquiries, we did need to direct to either an email or a phone call. And I would kind of put this one in the middle, because I did have a situation in Biketown for All where I was not able to connect with one of our participants. She just, we couldn't coordinate a time to speak through the phone or email. And I actually invited her to one of our weekly Biketown pop-ups, and she came on site, and I helped her out in person. So that kind of worked in that situation, although we still think it's a weakness. And the third one, I would say participants have the expectation that there is somebody on the other end of that line 24/7, right? Which is not the case. We do text, we do check Slick Text when we're working during business hours, oftentimes not on the weekend. So if somebody does have an inquiry or problem outside of those hours, there will be a delay in texting them back. Here's another screenshot at the bottom of the screen. This one was in regards to Biketown for All. Somebody's prepaid card just wasn't working, and I replied, you know, I'll get back to you in a second, and I just gave them a new card that we have a stock of. Yeah. I think Abra is next.
I'm next. Hello, everyone. My name is Abra McNair, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm with the Safe Routes to School program with the City of Portland. And here to talk to you today about how we use Slick Text to send encouragement and transportation demand management type of messages in preparation for returning to in-person school. And this was in fall 2021. So a lot of students had not been going to school campuses for about 18 months. There was a lot of like stress and anxiety, unknowns, a lot of different things, uncertainties basically around what it was going to look like to go back to school and how you're going to get there. So a lot of different things. So we as part of a larger back to school campaign, we use Slick Text as a small component of that program. And we had two different kind of communication like pathways, I guess. We had a PK through 5th grade parent or caregiver, like an adult focused messaging group, and then a 6th through 12th grade student or caregiver group. And go ahead, Renata. And how it worked was we had like a 10-day setup. Basically, the process was having people would opt in and sign up, and they would be signed up for 10 text messages, 1 text per day, leading up to the first day of school, and then a couple after the first day of school. And then just by opting in, they were registered for a raffle prize drawing for gift cards. So it was a pretty simple process. Some examples of the messaging that we used throughout those text days was for the adults or the parent focused messaging, practicing your route to school so you know what to expect, leaving early the first week to kind of reduce your stresses, CDC COVID-19 information links, and then also like after school had started, kind of checking in like, how was that arrival and dismissal? Was a little bit chaotic, then maybe try a park and walk. So kind of using that TDM messaging. For the youth focus, the 6th through 12th graders, it was a little bit more focus on mental health and stress reduction, knowing that that's kind of a big thing for youth right now for a variety of reasons. And then touching on route planning, building routines, getting more sleep, and then linking to some quizzes that we created or short videos or podcasts. So kind of information sharing. Next slide. Our opt-in method was all virtual, and we didn't want to tax the school staff very much. We know that they had a lot of other things on their plate. So we created a website with all of the graphics that you could share for social media or in school newsletters, and then also kind of like any sort of text information that they could use for their own school newsletters just to share out the information themselves. We also did our own program, social media posts and social media ads. And the example that we have on here is probably from like an Instagram post, and has a student, like a drawing kind of icon of a student who's looking a little bit worried. They're wearing a mask. There's a lot of different hands, like just kind of loose arms sticking into the screen. One's holding a bike lock, one's holding a pencil, one's pointing at the words. Back to school looks different this year. We're here to help. But kind of just trying to like show that schools, like, we're not totally sure what's happening. There's a lot of things to think about. And then we have a phone with the little bubble that says text school, which is our key text word, and to the phone number. So this is an example of way we are sharing that info. Next slide. And how it worked, we had to do a little bit of segmentation. So this student in the photo is texting the word backpack, and they would get an auto reply that was saying like, hey, this is the Safe Routes to School team. We've got 2 questions to get started. What is your school district? And Portland has 5 different school districts, PPS being the largest, and they started in 1 week, and then the 4 smaller school districts started in a different week. So in order to look, we had to segment that based on that, start window of like leading up to that first day of school. So this person responded PPS. And so we said, great, thanks. What's the name of your school? And they told us what the name of their school was. And that would just kind of help us know who was participating. So, and the adult K through 5th grade had the option of their first question was if they wanted to receive text in English or Spanish. And so that was a third segmentation that happened. So you could have, and then they took these, the follow-up school district and school questions. Next slide. And when you ask how effective it was, and I look at these numbers of, there's 61 K through 5th grade parents and caregivers who opted in, 72 6th through 12th grade students or caregivers opted in, and 9 people received text in Spanish. And when I think about the 78,000 students that attend schools through in K through 12th grades in Portland, this is a very minuscule amount of people that participated, but there is 61 schools represented out of 128 schools across the city. And that to me says that this is as this being our kind of like pilot option for this process, this told me that this is a great way to share information with across the city, that we have probably to do more legwork to get people to opt in the beginning. But 133 people received daily text with supportive messaging over those 10 days. I think that is really cool. we were able to offer like just sending a quick text to those 6th through 12th grade students saying, hey, it's getting darker outside. We have these safety lights for free. And we get 23 orders in the, like in the amount of like under like 12 hours or something. So I think it's a really like quick way of sharing information like that. Next slide. Just the strengths and weaknesses, that segmented messaging by district, language, grade, like that is really a helpful tool to make those messages seem more personalized, and that's kind of one of the strengths of Slick Text as a whole. It was easy to share resources like those safety lights or links that we wanted to share, the videos or other information. Once that I did the previous legwork of coming up with the content that we're going to share, figuring out who we wanted to segment it to and the timeline, like once I did that initial legwork, it ran smoothly, and it was also flexible where you could change words or different things depending on what was happening. And I think that's why I gave it a 3-star, just because of that initial legwork where I was probably crying a couple of days a week. So trying to figure that out. But and then the weaknesses, somebody else mentioned language as well. And language flexibility is really challenging. The Slick Text costs more to use different characters that are not within the English language. And also being able to interact back and forth with someone who might text you if you ask a question. If you don't speak that language, then you need to figure out like, do you have someone on your team that speaks that language? Just a little bit of challenges there. We, for this program, needed more promotion and maybe could have asked the schools to do a little bit more, like we're a little bit worried about asking them for too much because we knew about the stresses, but prepping for more promotion to make this more successful. And also that having that window of, we need you to sign up before this timeline so you can get these text messages before school made it a little stressful. And so if somebody signed up later and hadn't gotten those like first 3 messages or something, it was a little bit clunky to make sure that they got all the content we wanted to share. So yeah, thanks. Rachel, I think we're back to you.
Thanks, Abra. Yeah, Rachel Lobo again. So for this last use case, I'll be talking about using gamification, using texting for this behavior change technique, which is something that our team has been exploring different tools and methods for doing gamification for several years. And the COVID-19 pandemic really gave us an extra nudge to try texting as a tool. I would say difficulty-wise, I would say 4 stars. I'll go into kind of why that is throughout these next slides, but it's just a little bit more involved to mostly set up the game function, since that isn't the main function that this platform is used for. So, so for this campaign, we called it Go by Greenways. We have done several iterations of this style of campaign. The first one, Renata and the team did in East Portland in 2020. And then from there, we kept iterating on that format because we found it to be pretty effective. The one that we'll be talking about today is the one that we did in Northwest Portland in 2021 to celebrate the opening of the Northwest Flanders Bike and Pedestrian Bridge and Flanders Greenway. With this campaign, our goal was to get people to explore the area and explore this new bridge, to try walking, scooting, rolling across it, now that there was this game-changing way to get across 405 that hadn't existed before. So we came up with 8 locations in the area around the new crossing. You can see on the map, I have a graphic that has a map of Northwest Portland with little blue gems that each have a number on them placed in different locations. We placed them on neighborhood greenways, in parks, and also in businesses, because one of our other goals for this campaign was to help amplify and support local businesses that were really struggling during the COVID-19 pandemic. We also provided suggested walking or biking routes for people to find each of these gems on the map, and we hosted weekly prize drawings with prizes that we've purchased from local businesses. And then 2 of the gems we also placed at local businesses themselves, so that people had a reason to go to those businesses, and placed some flyers and materials in their windows. Do you want to go to the next slide? So to play the game, participants were directed to use the map to visit each of the 8 locations in the neighborhood. When they arrived at a location, they would find a hidden gem sign hung on a light or utility pole. On the screen, I have an example of one of those. I have a blue graphic that has the text word Biketown on it. It describes the campaign. It has the number to text. It has the same instructions in Spanish, as well as a QR code and some fun gem and zebra graphics on it. So once they got to that sign, they would text in the word Biketown and receive an automated reply back. Each word had a different automated reply. So for this one, for Biketown, it was actually near a Biketown station, and the automated reply also had a link to the Biketown website to learn more about signing up. So we were both using it to get people to go to that location, but also to get some information about active transportation options in the area and ways that they could get around infused in each of those messages. We also had some auto reply messages that encouraged people to send a selfie to get a bonus prize entry. These were super fun. One of the locations was on the crossing. We had a sign on the crossing, and the text word for that one had the directions telling you, to receive an extra bonus entry, email a selfie to our Smart Trips email inbox. That was super fun and a great way to see people's faces. If you want to go to the next slide. So in terms of how effective it was, we had 244 people play the game. The campaign lasted for 6 weeks, and we did have a major heat event during that time where we kind of paused or stopped promoting the game for safety. It was a great way to get people to view our Google map, which was part of the auto reply for all of the text messages. So people received a link to our online Google map, which we thought would be a helpful tool for them. In addition to like a static image of a map, also having a Google map that they could use in real time as they were exploring the area. And we received 98 selfies from people from those different locations. So I think for the whole team, that was really the highlight, since we weren't able to engage with people in person during events. Getting photos of people's smiling faces, engaging, getting outside, exploring the neighborhood during the pandemic was really special. So I have one of those selfies that we got of a kid hanging out in front of one of the businesses, and behind him you can faintly see one of the hidden gem signs. Then below that, I have an image of one of the employees from Khao San Thai holding up our brochures. We placed the brochures in some of the businesses nearby so that people, if they wanted to, could go and pick up the map and hold a physical map in their hand. We also passed out the maps and distributed them at the opening event of the crossing. One of the things that we did here as well was we had an exit survey. This was a survey that people automatically received if they had completed all of the text words. If they had submitted all 8 text words, they would automatically receive this campaign asking them to take an exit survey. We also sent the survey to everyone in our text list at the end of the season. So this was a great way for us to get a little bit more information about how people participated, and especially around our goals, like getting people to stop at a new business, discover a new business, or even spend money and find out how they learned about the campaign. All right, let's go to the next slide. Thank you. So some of the strengths were, because we weren't able to be there in person all the time, seeing what people are doing, having people text in at each of the different locations gave us some important data to know which locations people had been to. It was definitely more cumbersome having to set up so many different text words, but it gave us more unique data. We were able to see that on the day of the opening, we had 49 people text in with the locate for the text word that was on the crossing itself. So that was helpful to know that as a peak, that event helped draw as many people, draw the most number of people to play the game at one time. It was also a no contact option during COVID, so it felt like a safe way for people. It was kind of just as folks were starting to feel more comfortable getting out and being outside, but not necessarily gathering in crowds. And there's a pretty low barrier to entry as long as, like others have mentioned, you have a phone and access to a plan. The flexibility of the messaging was super important. Like I mentioned, we had a extreme heat event during the campaign, so we were able to quickly adapt and pivot our messaging for that week, encouraging people to stay inside and stay hydrated, which was really quick and easy to adapt versus if we had had a big long email campaign or press release that we would have had to completely change. Changing the text messages in real time before they go out is a lot easier. Some of the challenges, it is, like I said, this platform isn't designed for gamification. So we were kind of working around some of the, just the formatting of the platform to make it work. So we had a contact list and text word for each of the locations, which was a little bit more to manage and plan for all those automated replies. Because of the way Slick Text works, at least for this platform, if you can receive photos if you want, but it can create some issues for you if you're trying to do two-way texting with participants. So in this situation, we wanted to be able to continue having the two-way texting. So we asked people to send their selfies via email. That was really nice because we still got a good amount of them, but it does create extra legwork of having to take them from our email, log them, add them to the prize entries. And then, like others have noted, there is the accessibility piece of having a lot of our text messages had links and information and required a cell phone. So we did try out providing a physical version of the game. We had brochures with the map and a place where participants could write in each of the text words as they went around exploring and then mail it into us. And we had 2 people choose to participate that way. So I think, you know, in the future, looking to get the word out about that other way to opt in or participate would be really valuable, and making sure that more of those physical maps got into people's hands would be great. Anything to add about Northwest Gems, Renata?
I don't think so. I think that was great. Yeah, there's a lot to cover there with that program. Well, thank you, Rachel. And thank you to also Abra, Guy, and Gina for taking time to prepare and share all of the specific information related to their programs. To tie it all up today, I've outlined the 6 steps that you can use for how to get started based on what we've learned about using texting as an engagement tool. The first step is to really decide on a clear communication goal. You know, we highlighted 5 different communication goals today. You know, there's many others, I'm sure too, that you could use this tool. So just picking one and designing everything around that one goal is really key, because when you try to split across multiple goals, your messages will be very diluted. The second is to estimate the number of texts and text words that you need in a month in order to select the right plan for you and the right tool. The third is deciding on an opt-in method that has the least barrier of entry in order to get the most number of people to opt into your text list. The fourth is if you are having people opt in via typing in a word in their phone, make sure to pick a word that is simple and doesn't expose yourself to like auto correction errors. So the simpler the words, the better. The fifth is to craft and preview your messages in advance, so you know what your message will look like on the other end when the person gets it. Is it too long? Is it too short? Do you need line breaks? And then finally is just to make sure that you're monitoring your campaign, so that if they do reply afterwards, kind of like what Guy was saying in his example, to make sure that you're there occasionally to just like write back, especially if people have questions. And I also listed a couple of resources here for you that you could use on your own time. The first is a short PDF that's really, the title is 12 Secrets of Text Marketing, which is, you know, obviously not a secret because it's on the internet. And then the second is a much more comprehensive guide of best practices as compiled by the Mobile Marketing Association, which is a group in the marketing industry that really leads and shapes the direction of mobile marketing. And finally, I think I want to thank the Street Trust and OATS organizers for inviting us to host the session today. And some of the programs that we mentioned today are funded by our Metro Regional Travel Options Grant. And so I also want to thank Metro and the Federal Transit Administration for their support. We can take questions now. And, while you're thinking of your questions, I wanted to describe the slide that we're on right now, which is really it's a SWOT summary, which is SWOT stands for strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. It's basically a summary of all of the strengths and weaknesses that you've heard throughout the presentation, from all of the different presenters, summarized into one chart. Just so, again, this was actually just a helpful group exercise for us, I think, to summarize these things. But yeah, so we have a little bit of time for questions. And so let us know if you have any questions. Oh, I see a raised hand. Ray, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
I'm curious about the decals are installed on the sidewalks. I did not see like a number on them. And so I'm curious with like location data, whether that was considered when you're planning, how to collect data for like the sidewalk decals, whether there was discussion about creating like personalized for each location, have like 1, 2, 3, so you could map out the data and the results.
I can jump in.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Gina.
I can jump into that one. Hey, Ray, good to see you. Thanks for the question. So I should have mentioned that in the 2020, so the stuff that I described was from our 2021 series, where we weren't as interested in location. We were kind of looking at a whole citywide because it was our second year of the program. In 2020, we were very interested in location, and we couldn't figure out, using kind of the parameters of slick text of like yes, no, maybe, of how to do it in the survey. So what we actually did is we had 6 different text words. So you could text like SEPDX, or you could text 1-800 whatever, and then the code was SEPDX or SWPDX or NPDX. And so that we had different kind of areas of town so that we could see, one, how much were people responding in those different areas, and then also what the different feelings or thoughts about the program were, kind of depending on what part of town you were in, because it was very different. The feedback we got from different parts of Portland. So yeah, we had to get a little creative, because then you're also ordering, 7 different sign types and trying to make sure that you have your contractor put them out in the right locations, and then that's 7 different surveys to analyze, and yeah, got a little tricky. So last year we simplified it for ourselves.
Thanks for sharing about the earlier example. I will say that I did a similar situation in Milwaukee when I was playing a shuttle, and when I did try to put numbers in for each location, people did not always remember where they found the decal. They're like, oh, there was a number on the decal. And then they're like, I don't know which one I was supposed to, share with you. So that's my learning experience. It doesn't always work out the way you want to.
I see Kathy said that the 5 transportation providers in the gorge are working with Twilio. They all have such fascinating techie names, don't they? To text service alerts for those who sign in. So that's really great. And I'm curious about how that will go. Just kind of trying out other providers.
Yeah, this was super helpful just to be thinking about like the language problem. I wasn't thinking that there would be limited text available, limited characters that were available to us to text in Spanish. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, that was certainly the case with Slick Text, which might be different with other providers. So hopefully it's not as much of a challenge with Twilio.
Kathy, one idea is you could use slick text for the English version, but if the first question is, would you like this survey in Spanish? And they click yes, it could send them to SurveyMonkey or something like that.
Oh, right. Yeah, if we're doing a survey, and this is something I'm wrestling with, because our immediate purpose is to just send writers alerts if there's a sudden, like there's snow or a bus broke down, just sudden service alerts, and just being super cautious. I am really worried that our 5 transportation providers will start to use it for surveys. I'm thinking already, I'm trying to think about the things that we need to be thinking about now to tell people what to expect to receive texts about, and how to opt in and how to opt out of certain kinds of texts, like surveys, as opposed to, hey, the red line is down for the day.
Yeah, I think a good recommendation is to, if you have 2 different goals like that and you're getting people in first to, like, say maybe take a survey, is to encourage people, if they want to receive other types of texts that are like more like notifications or events, encouraging them to kind of text, opt into a different list, then how to like organize, like kind of what the goal is or the intention is behind each list, is also an option.
Yeah, that was helpful to hear, that it's kind of like using any kind of newsletter formatting. Like, you have these certain groups that you can put people in. So that's great.
Mm-hmm. And I did, I wanted to see, if we have time at the end, I was going to kind of show what the result of our demo texting in the beginning was, just so you all could see what the analytics look like on our end. So I'm going to escape out of my full screen here. Don't be shocked when you see this change, and see what we have. Let me see if I could. So this is what the inside of SlickText, what it looks like. And when you do a survey, you could see basically 14 people took the survey today. This is the one that we just did at the beginning of the session, just for fun and to demonstrate what it looks like. And then you can, you can export this data, but this is what the analytics look like, just for you to like quickly see it. So today we have a lot of people coming from the public sector joining us for this session, and a little bit from nonprofit, private, and other. 9 people have not used texting before. 1 person is unsure. And then this is my question about snacks. So you could really see the word cloud of snacks, which is always a great way to end a session. Lots of snacks needed during OATS participation, at least for the virtual conference. But yeah. If there's no other questions, well, let me stop sharing my screen so we can all see each other, and I can see the questions a little better. Yeah, if there's no other questions, thank you so much for joining the session today. And Ray, thank you for sharing the link. And it's good to hear some of your experiences using this tool as well. And I hope to, in a future year or like in the future, being able to discuss more about how we're using this tool.